Throughout the month, I've watched all of the Mission Impossible movies leading up to the final reckoning, and I thought to myself, I should make a video about this because, I guess I got nothing better to do. The Mission Impossible franchise originated from a TV series by the same name created by Bruce Geller. The show lasted for 7 seasons and spanned from 1966 to 1973, but that doesn't really matter because the movies don't even acknowledge the show, and I don't even think the movies are canon to the show, so I'm going to move on. The Mission Impossible movie franchise started in 1996 with the first film, Mission Impossible, being directed by the legendary director Brian De Palma and starring Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. The franchise now has 8 films total, with directors like John Woo, J.J. Abrams, Brad Bird, and Christopher McQuarrie all being part of the franchise. The series is known for its stunning action, set pieces, and stellar stunt work, as well as having the most iconic theme song of all time. But with all that out of the way, it's time to rank the films. But what's the worst one? I know you're asking this right now, just screaming at the screen. What could number 8 possibly be? Number 8, Mission Impossible 2. Yeah, I mean, that's not that surprising. On Twitter, I was seeing a lot of rankings of the Mission Impossible movies, and it was kind of crazy to me to see how different everyone's opinions were, but every list had this one in last place, and it's pretty obvious why that's the case. For starters, Ethan Hunt feels like a totally different character than he does in the first one. Ethan Hunt went from a smart, calculated spy to generic cool guy and aura farmer. On multiple occasions near the end of the film, Ethan Hunt will walk into a room, and I kid you not, a bunch of doves will just fly out of nowhere. It's actually astounding to me that they pretended like these two guys were the same person, because they are not. There's also this terrible romance in the film where Ethan hooks up with this thief girl, and Anthony Hopkins is like, yeah, you're getting cucked if you choose to accept, and we're expected to care, but they literally just had a one-night stand. This is by far the craziest situationship I've ever seen. So the lady Ethan is dragging around these days used to date an evil man who wants to create a super virus, and they need the lady to get back with her ex to get information. And there's a scene where the villain is talking to his second in command, and the second in command guy is like, it's awfully convenient that your ex came back into your life as soon as we make a breakthrough in whatever it is that we're doing. And the villain is like, yeah, she's totally playing me, but she's so hot, so I don't really care. Then he cuts off the second in command guy's finger for some reason, which does come into play at the end, and that's a nice little touch. But I think there's something below the surface and in between the lines that needs to be addressed. These two guys are gay, right? Like, the tension between these two is overflowing with closeted homosexuality. Could just be me, but I am right and you are wrong, unless you agree with me. I also feel like Ethan Hunt was kind of sidelined here. The majority of the movie is his girlfriend spying on the bad guy, and Ethan kind of guides her, but I feel like he doesn't do anything outside of the ending of the film. Brendan Gleeson is in this film, and that's kind of a shame because he's such a good actor and he's wasted on easily the worst Mission Impossible film. There's also this scene where Ethan Hunt and the spy lady are crashing into each other, and they're both driving around cars with precision and also an awkward slow motion, which is just kind of this movie's little quirky thing. And Ethan goes, watch the road, and she crashes, which I found really funny because she's like an expert thief or whatever, but Ethan's aura is so much that she loses focus and crashes the car. Also, in the final battle, on multiple occasions, Ethan skips on the opportunity to kill the villain and instead chooses to hand-to-hand combat him because that just makes perfect sense to do considering his girlfriend is dying from a crazy new illness. Anyways, this movie can be funny, but it does suck. 3 out of 10. Number 7, Mission Impossible. I'm not gonna lie, I don't fully get the hype with this one. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad movie. The fact that this sprung on one of the most iconic action franchises of all time is insane to me. I think my biggest problem with this is how convoluted it is. I've watched this movie twice now, and I couldn't really tell you what happens accurately outside of Ethan Hunt's team dies and he investigates it. Maybe this is a testament to how stupid I am, but I don't know, I just didn't fully grasp this even on a second watch through. Also, I find it incredibly funny that in order to find this mysterious Max figure, Ethan goes on the internet and searches Max.com. This is definitely a product of its time. I think despite these problems I have, this is still a very enjoyable film. Tom Cruise does great, and I really like the scene where he's just getting super paranoid and is on high alert after his team dies. There's also the iconic CIA vault heist. The total lack of music adds so much to the tension in the scene, and it's a scene that's shot very well along with this whole movie. It's a very sleek looking film, and it oozes with espionage, spy chicanery. Ethan Hunt is also a very cool character. He does a lot of stuff in this movie where I think to myself, that is very smart, like sprinkling broken glass in the hallway of the safe room so you can hear if anyone steps on it. I really like stuff like that. I also thought Luther was a cool character. I thought it was a cool subversion to what the typical nerd character is. There's also some details that make especially the first act better on rewatch, like the waiter staring down that one spy. I noticed this when I first watched it, and I thought that it must be like an extra wanting some attention or something, but it actually serviced the plot because he was a spy as well. I wish this movie's plot made a little more sense because I think everything outside of the messy plot is great, but the clustered story brings this quite a bit for me. 6 out of 10. Number 6. Mission Impossible 3. This is where the franchise starts to get good in my mind. This is a perfect mixture of the sleekness of the first film with the cool factor that the second film was trying to go for. I thought it was really cool how they showed us how the masks and the voice changes are made, something that didn't necessarily need explaining, but it's such a vital part of the franchise that I'm glad they did explain it. This is also the first Mission Impossible film where I actually cared about the team outside of Ethan Hunt. Luther is given a lot more to work with here, and even though we didn't spend a lot of time with the other two members of the team, I did enjoy the time we spent with them. One minor complaint I have is that the girlfriend in the second film is never even mentioned here as far as I know, and Ethan is not only with a new woman, but he's getting married to her. Not that I loved his love interest in the previous film, but we never really know what happens, and I feel like there could have been an opportunity where they could have expounded on her character, or at the very least, made her a character. Granted, I don't think the Mission Impossible films were that concerned with continuity at the time, but nevertheless, it was something I was thinking about while watching the film. Philip Seymour Hoffman was definitely the standout of this film. At no point do you ever feel like Ethan is in control, and it makes his villain all the more scary and compelling. I like this movie to begin with, but Hoffman's performance elevates this film to a whole other level. I love the part where Ethan is interrogating him, and you think Ethan has the upper hand until Luther shouts Ethan's name to get him to stop, and Owen says Ethan's name, and it was like a mic drop moment. Another complaint is that I wish we got more time with him. I feel like he should have been in the film more, but I really like his character here nonetheless. Even though I enjoyed this movie, I do have some more complaints. For starters, I think that the action is poorly shot with quick cut editing and shaky cam. It doesn't ruin the movie per se, but I do wish I could, see more. But my main complaint comes from the opening, or what it leads to rather. The opening is such a jarring and intense scene, and it really sets the mood for the film, but at the end it doesn't really make sense. Owen is trying to figure out where the rabbit's foot is and is holding Ethan's wife at gunpoint and eventually shoots her, but it's revealed at the end of the film that it was Owen's assistant and not Ethan's wife, and Owen knows where the rabbit's foot is, and it's revealed that Ethan's friend was actually working with Owen, which is a good reveal, but what they actually want to know is what the transcribed message the agent at the beginning sent Ethan before dying, because the message could have been incriminating information on the double agent. So what was the point of pretending to kill Ethan's wife outside of tricking the audience? I legit don't know, and it kind of ruins what was an amazing opening scene. And they transcribed the message at a super convenient time as well. It all just felt superficial and kind of took me out of the movie a bit. It seems like people are pretty divided when it comes to this movie, which I really don't get. I think most of everyone who dislikes this movie just dislikes J.J. Abrams. Don't get me wrong, I don't like Jar Jar Abrams either, but I don't know. I can't deny that he definitely cooked here. 7 out of 10. Number 5, Rogue Nation. So this is the first Mission Impossible film to be written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, and it definitely makes sense why he's a series mainstay now. Even though I definitely prefer Brad Bird's direction, McQuarrie has a lot more suave in his Mission Impossible films, which works with the new direction they're going with. As always, the action is great, with the motorcycle chase and the theater scene being standouts. I didn't like this movie as much as everyone else did, but I definitely did enjoy it, but there were two things that were kind of bothering me. Number one, I felt like Simon Pegg was just a little too stupid. Like, he's been a field agent for a while now, but he's consistently clueless whenever he's captured, and he acts as if he's like a civilian and not a spy. Number two, I understand Rebecca Ferguson is hot or whatever, but I feel like Ethan would catch on after the second betrayal. I just find it really weird that, she's given him no reason to believe that she's good, but, she is, and Ethan just so happens to be right about it. This I know people will disagree with, but I feel like Ethan wouldn't mess around after being played a second time. I also didn't think the villain was at all that interesting. He seemed very generic, and I wasn't really interested or afraid of him. Anyways, I don't have a lot to say about this one. Thought it was a good movie, and I really think the Syndicate is a cool concept. Don't hate me, 7 out of 10. Number 4, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I was looking at some reviews for this film, and I have to say I am very surprised by how divisive this is. It's definitely not Last Jedi levels of polarizing, but a lot of people seem to love this movie, and a lot of people seem to be disappointed by it. I definitely fall more on the love side. One thing that really stood out to me here is the dread. Ethan Hunt has saved the world on multiple occasions, but here the stakes are felt way more and you're constantly on the edge of your seat, even if it's just two people talking or whatever. There's also less humor in this, which seems to be a point of contention with a lot of people, but I personally understood and liked this aspect of the film. It added more to the tension and it made you take the story more seriously. By far my favorite scene in this film is the submarine scene. I was very tense during this scene. It was extremely claustrophobic and it felt like everything was working against Ethan. A lot of people complain about the pacing here, and I do kind of agree. I think the first half caters way too much to those who aren't fans of the franchise, and it definitely over-explains itself at points. Like, this is the last film. I think this should be one for the fans. Another thing I thought was odd about this film was the constant cutting back to previous films or scenes throughout the film. So Luther developed a poison pill that can supposedly destroy the entity, and Gabriel took it from Luther before killing him. And when Ethan asks what's happening, Luther talks about the poison pill, and it cuts to like 30 seconds before showing us exactly what happened, as if we forgot about it or something. And the film does this a lot, where they'll cut back to scenes as if the audience forgot what happened. I was also glad to see everyone make it out. Well, minus Luther. Rip Luther, you were a real one. But one of the survivors is Ethan himself, and although I'm glad he's alive, I feel like the story would have benefited from his death because this film markets itself as the last Mission Impossible film. But with Ethan surviving and not retiring or anything, it leaves the door a little too open for a sequel, and I didn't feel a sense of finality personally. Not that I'd be upset about a 9th film, because these have been consistently good since the 3rd movie, but I definitely wish the ending delivered on its, ending. Overall, I enjoyed this film, and even though it wasn't as good as the other films in this franchise, I thought it was a solid ending. 7.5 out of 10. Number 3, Fallout. I remember when this movie came out and all of the hype surrounding it made me want to get into the Mission Impossible franchise, but I never did till now, and let's just say it's worth the hype. I thought the villain was way better this time around, and he felt more like a threat than an obstacle that the characters need to get around. Also, am I the only one that didn't love Henry Cavill in this? Not that I thought he was bad, but whenever he talks, his acting is so stilted. Like, physically I thought he was great, but some of his line delivery was just really off. The bathroom fight scene was so amazing and kinetic, legit one of the best in the series, and it didn't even have any crazy stunts. It's just a straight up well choreographed fight scene. This is also easily the best looking film in the series. Even shots where Tom Cruise is doing in-camera stunts, the cameraman was totally locked in and made the scene look fantastic. You can barely tell that this is a stunt, if that makes any sense. A lot of real stunts require less mobility in the camera because you can't really get the perfect shot if the camera is attached to a plane or whatever, but I was really impressed with the camera work here. I thought Vanessa Kirby was good in this and was kind of surprised surprised when the plot moved on from her. I thought she gave a memorable enough of a performance that she'd stick around. This is also the first Mission Impossible film to really have the connective tissue with aspects of Rogue Nation and Mission Impossible 3 coming into play here. And I always enjoyed it when a spy flick like this starts to continue the plot threads because it raises the stakes and it makes it feel like the plot is actually going somewhere. Also, side note, if you think about it, Mission Impossible Fallout inadvertently killed the DCEU. Think about it. Why did the DCEU die? Because it sucked. But why did it suck? Bad movies and lack of direction. And why did it have a lack of direction? Because Zack Snyder and other creatives left. And who took over for Zack Snyder? Joss Whedon. And what movie did Joss Whedon direct? Justice League. And who looked weird in Justice League? Superman. And why did Superman look weird in Justice League? Henry Cavill's CGI mouth. And why did he have a CGI mouth? Because he had to have a mustache for another movie. And what movie was that? Mission Impossible Fallout. Thank you, Tom Cruise. We can never repay you for what you've done. I don't know, man. I don't have a lot to say. I think it was great, and this is by far one of the best movies in the franchise. And Tom Cruise is just a total maniac. 8 out of 10. Number 2, Ghost Protocol. Mission Impossible 3 was the movie where the franchise started to get good, but Ghost Protocol is when the franchise really came to its own. The action in this film is honestly some of the best in the series, with a ton of standout sequences such as the car vending machine place, the scene where they have to pretend to get the nuclear codes, and of course the scene where Ethan scales the tallest building in the world. I wrote it down in the script what it is, but I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. Which is a super stressful scene, made even more stressful once you know that Tom Cruise legit was scaling that building. Even though I wouldn't say this is the first Mission Impossible film where I like the supporting cast, this is the first Mission Impossible film where I liked the new characters, with the standout being Jeremy Renner. At first, you're very suspicious of his character, and I was dreading the reveal that he was going to betray them, but I was relieved when he is actually good, and his history with Ethan makes for an interesting backstory, and it impacts the story by the end. Speaking of the story, I absolutely loved it. This is the first Mission Impossible movie since the first one where I legit felt like the mission was in fact impossible, with the odds being stacked against everyone and the plans constantly failing. It made the story very tense and the victory very satisfying. I know everyone talks about the skyscraper scene, but can we talk about the scene where they project the back wall so they can sneak into a room? First of all, this gadget is just so cool and creative. I love the detail where it only works for one person because it can't account for everyone's perspective. And the water drip sound gadget was also really awesome, and I really hope it comes into existence someday because imagine the pranks that you could pull with that thing. I'd say my only issue with this film is that I felt like the villain and their motivations were a little bit generic, but honestly I don't mind it that much because the stakes are felt enough to where it didn't really register to me until after watching the film. Another thing I love is that despite the film being super fantastical, there are these human moments, like whenever Ethan jumps into the window from the skyscraper, he hits his head and he needs to be saved. It makes the film feel grounded, despite the film being absolutely crazy. Brad Bird absolutely cooked with this one, and it's crazy how he can do both live action and animation so well. I really hope whatever he does next, animated or live action, has a good script, because when this man gets a hold of a good script, it's pure magic. Heck, even when he gets a hold of a bad script, his direction is still great. 8 out of 10. Number 1, Dead Reckoning. Remember when I talked about all these other Mission Impossible films and said that they don't have memorable villains? Yeah, that's not the case here. The Entity is such an intimidating villain, not just because of how it affects the plot or how it always seems to be a step ahead of Ethan, but because it's totally probable and has gotten more probable 2 years after the film's release, and will become more probable years from now. This film feels like more like a warning than the first part of a send-off to a franchise. Dead Reckoning has by far some of my favorite action scenes in the series, with the car chase where Ethan and Grace are handcuffed, the train sequence, and the alleyway fight are all great. One thing I disliked about this film is Gabriel, and more specifically his connection to Ethan Hunt. It is randomly randomly revealed that him killing some random woman who may or may not also have had a connection to Ethan is what drove him to join the IMF. And it feels very tacked on, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think the addition of Grace makes what is already a tense story even more tense, because you're throwing in someone who knows nothing about being a spy into one of the most important conflicts in the entire world. And I also liked her dynamic with Ethan, even if it is kind of weird that they're flirting or whatever, with Elsa still in the picture. I get that they're not actually together, but I don't know, it just kind of lessens Ethan's relationship with Elsa for me. Also, rip Elsa, she had a great send-off and I was sad to see her die. All in all, I may be in the minority here, but this is my favorite Mission Impossible film. I think with the real-world implications of AI, it makes the threat all the more terrifying, and even got Joe Biden concerned about AI. 8 out of 10. Watching the Mission Impossible films the first time over the past week has got me kind of upset. Not because I didn't like them, because clearly I've become a fan, but I'm upset that I've been missing out my whole life. Mission Impossible is by far one of the best and innovative action franchises of all time, with great memorable characters, amazing action set pieces, great scores throughout the series, and with one outlier, the most consistently good franchise of all time. I mean, there's 8 movies and only one is bad, and it's just the second one, but after that, it's all bangers. That is mighty impressive. Thank you, Tom Cruise. Thank you, Brian De Palma. Thank you, J.J. Abrams. Thank you, Brad Bird. Thank you, Christopher McQuarrie. Thank you to all the people who worked behind the scenes, and yes, thank you, John Woo, for helping to create this amazing franchise. But most importantly, thank you for watching this video. That's been my ranking for the Mission Impossible films. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you later.
And there's not another human in view. And
Yo, this cat right here. Day in a bleak night.